Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Six Sided Scholars, your TNA PLEV review show here on the BC Wrestle Pod channel. I am your host, Mikey, and I am going to be solo leveling it this evening, as my other two co-hosts unfortunately could not be able to make it this evening, but I am here, so I'm going to do my best to, give my thoughts and feelings about TNA's Rebellion, which is what we're going to be reviewing here tonight. But before I get into the review tonight, if you are watching, thank you so much for tuning in and thank you for being here. I know it is late for most folks in the States and across the world, so thank you for tuning in. But if you like what you see on the screen, or even if you don't, that is totally okay. We want to hear your comments and your feedback regardless. So make sure you can leave a comment below in the YouTubes, the Twitchdom, or if you want to see something a little bit more, then you could definitely check out our social medias at BC WrestlePod, where you can see show clips, report cards for everything that we do, as well as some breaking news kind of stuff. So at the time of this recording, we are in the midst of the weekly releases from certain big promotions that will not be mentioned. And we're going to save my thoughts and feelings until Sunday with the WWE crew, talking a little bit about that before we review Raw and SmackDown. But let's just jump into it. So, TNA Rebellion took place at the Gallon Center at the USC campus from Los Angeles, California, Sunday, April 27th, 2025. I was very lucky enough to be in the building for this one. I was so excited. This is my first TNA show ever, and the fact that it is one of the big 4 pay-per-views for TNA is fantastic. So, without further ado, let's just jump into it. I'm repping my Leon Slater shirt tonight, so I'm excited to talk about Rebellion. So let's just jump straight in, because we're going to talk about the pre-show, because we had 2 matches on there. The first match was a 6-woman tag team match, which saw the team of Zaya Brookside, Liang Li, and taking on the team of Fatal Influence from NXT. So that is Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine. So at this point, since this was on the Countdown show, at this point, people were still filing in when this match happened, but dang, was this a really solid way to start out the pre-show. I thought Fatal Influence looked great as a unit. They do very well to play these kind of heelish characters with comedy chops, especially when it came to their interactions with Rosemary. And I have to say, I think Zaya Brookside, Liang Li, and Rosemary were a very great team as well. This was a good back and forth between all 6 women, but towards the tail end, Rosemary tried to get Zaya Brookside to use the brass knuckles to win. Zaya Brookside would not allow herself to do so, and unfortunately, it did cost her the match, as Fatal Influence would use the momentary hesitation from Zaya of using the brass knuckles to take advantage to hit their finisher and to pick up the win for them. After the match, Rosemary is visibly upset at Zaya Brookside, and who knows? We will see where this story or feud progresses, but I thought this was a good 6-man, 6-knockout, 6-woman tag team match, and this is a strong way to start out the Countdown show. And the only thing left to discuss on the Countdown show is the second match we got, which was the Walk with Elijah Open Challenge. So Elijah, leading into TNA Rebellion, said that he would host an open challenge for anybody to answer. So we got a little bit of a concert to begin with Elijah, where he did a song talking about the area which we were in. So the LA culture, the LA Fires, all that good stuff, the sports teams, you name it. And so when Elijah was done with his concert, he had the open challenge, which was answered by none only TMDK's, yes, you heard me say that correctly, TMDK, Zack Sabre Jr.'s faction from New Japan, in the form of Shane Hayes coming in to, answer the open challenge for Elijah. I never realized how strong Elijah is and how big he is until I saw him wrestle. Shane Hayes throwing that New Japan strong style of wrestling at Elijah was interesting to watch, but it was really fun to watch Elijah be able to work and counter with that as well. So it was so much fun to do and to watch this. So this was a good back and forth, but ultimately Elijah did pick up the victory. And this was a fun Countdown show. We had the 2 matches. We had, the panel coming out to talk about all the matches that were happening on the main card. And that panel included Gia Miller, Tommy Dreamer, SiriusXM's Busted Open host Dave LaGreca, and Los Angeles' own O'Shea Jackson Jr., which I did not have on my bingo card, but it was fantastic to watch anyways. But we got through the hour of the countdown, which was free to watch, and then we could jump straight into the main card. We kicked off the main card of Rebellion with this Ultimate X match for the TNA X Division Championship. It saw the champion Moose defend his title against Matt Cardona, Leon Slater, Casey Navarro, and Sydney Akeem. I'm going to be completely honest. This ended up being in my top 3 matches of the night. I thought everyone did a fantastic job. Everyone got their spots in, but especially my 2 favorite moments came in the form of Vikingo basically doing a Canadian Destroyer on the ring apron. So I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be bruised in the morning. But then, of course, Leon Slater being the youngest in charge and just defying all laws of physics, gravity, and safety, climbed to the very top of the metal pole and did a 450 swanton bomb off that thing into the other wrestlers down below. It was very gnarly to watch, especially because nobody caught him correctly and Leon just bounced off the mat on the floor, which was very scary to watch. But glad to see that he is okay. We get a couple more back and forth moments, and then the final stretch of this match, Leon Slater gets the championship. I'm super excited. I'm rooting for Leon to win this. I've been wanting him to be X Division champion for a very long time. He falls to the floor where, unfortunately, Moose does spear him, knocking the championship out of his hand, which would allow Moose to grab the championship. And your winner, and still TNA X Division champion, Moose. I was mad. Moose being the champion is fine, it's whatever. But I kind of wish that we did something a little more creative with the ending. But I still thought this was a really phenomenal way to start the show. And this ended up in my top 3 matches. So from here, we move on to our second match of the main card, which is a fatal 4-way for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. So this saw our champions, Ash and Heather by Elegance, being accompanied by their personal concierge, George Iceman. And they were taking on the NXT's Meta-4, which is Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, TNA Spitfire, the former champions, and Chemical X, which is Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. I also really like this match. I think this was a good showcase for all 4 teams, especially for Gigi, Tatum, and Jakara and Lash, because it showed their teamwork. Spitfire also showing great teamwork. But of course, we could not have a Heather and Ash by Elegance championship match without some shenanigans. As we get dueling Tower of Doom spots, we have Maggie Lee, our recently new assigned knockout to TNA, come out and help Ash from falling in that Tower of Doom spot, which would allow her to hit her finisher. And the House of Elegance retains their Knockouts Tag Team Championships. I thought this was a really good high speed match, fast pace. Of course, the Rascals and Ace Austin only work on 1 speed, and that is 100 or nothing. But it was really fun to watch the system also counteract that speediness and the aerial, offense of the Rascals and Ace Austin. I also love that Alicia Edwards was not afraid to get in here. She took an X Factor from Sean Waltman. Ultimately, the system tried their shenanigans, but it would not be enough, and the Rascals and Ace Austin end up picking up the victory for their team here. And this was a phenomenal, fun match. It was really cool. Los Angeles was very receptive of Sean Waltman. The Rascals and Ace Austin celebrating afterwards was great. Of course, the triple Bronco Busters into the corners was fantastic. This was just a fun match. I will say, I feel like this felt more of like a match you would see on TNA Weekly Show instead of a pay-per-view. But this was a fun way, and this was a good match to get the crowd still invested and get going. So at this point, we were 3 matches into the main card, and everything was going good. Everything was grooving. We liked it. I still had some, minute picks with some matches, but it was it was very solid, and we were up on an upward trajectory. However, While the next few matches weren't bad, I will say that this is where we kind of got at the plateau because there were some questionable decisions that were being made that kind of messed with the overall atmosphere and the flow of the card. And that kind of started with this match. So, this was our TNA International Championship match. Steve Macklin, having just won the championship the week before at Unbreakable, would defends his title against Eric Young, the friends that have been forever now turned rivals, question mark. Still don't know how much Steve Macklin hates Eric Young, but how do I put this nicely? The match itself, it was fine. I didn't think it was bad, but it was really short. This didn't go more than like 7 minutes, and I was kind of surprised. And unfortunately, I think because of how short it was, it didn't allow Macklin or Eric Young to get much of anything in. And I honestly felt that this match was here on Rebellion just to set up what was going to happen after the match, which is unfortunate because I feel that stories, while important in wrestling, should never come at the cost of good in-ring. The in-ring was fine. I just wish I wish they actually got to fight a little bit longer because this is only 7 minutes. And again, the match itself was just Steve Macklin does retain his international championship. And this match was only here to propel the Northern Armory of Eric Young and Sinner and Saint attacking Macklin after the match and then hanging him with a metal chain. So it was kind of a bummer. I like Macklin. I like Eric Young. I was kind of hyped to see this match. And I was a little underwhelmed for it. Again, I don't think this match was bad in any shape or form, but story should not come at the cost of having a good in-ring match. And this was just okay. And it's the same thing could be said for, well, I take that back. This sucked because then this was a weak point of the card, unfortunately. And because of what happened after the match with the Northern Armory attacking Eric Young, we knew that this feud was not going to continue. But then we kicked it up because then we had this Fall Count Anywhere match. This was my second match to enter the top 3, honestly. And I thought this was such a fun match. This was great. I've seen some people call this match a spot fest. And I feel that sometimes people forget that wrestling doesn't necessarily always have to be great technical stuff or in-ring things. Sometimes you can have a good gimmick match and a good spot fest. So this was a Falls Count Anywhere match, Mike Santana versus Mustafa Ali. To be honest, this was probably my number 1 match of the whole entire night. So the Ultimate X, this match, and honestly, the 6 knockout pre-show match was probably my 3 favorite matches of the whole entire night. So, but we have a Falls Count Anywhere match. These two have been feuding since the beginning of the year, and this is the final match that these two were going to have. When you talk about a Falls Count Anywhere match, they went everywhere. They went into the crowd. They used this ring announcement. There were tables, chairs, the steel steps, and everybody got a piece of the action. Ali got attacked. The Great Hands got attacked. Tasha Steelz, Mike Santana putting her through a table was nuts to watch. And it got a little bloody, but not too crazy. This was a great match. This Falls Count Anywhere match was fantastic. This ended up being my favorite match of the whole entire show. And Mike Santana walks out as the winner here and putting to bed for now in this current chapter between Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali. This feud is over for now. This was a fantastic match. And honestly, it was really great. Everybody did their job. There was a lot of fun moments. There's a lot of craziness that happened. This Falls Count Anywhere match between Mike and Mustafa Ali was fantastic. Was my favorite match of the whole entire card. Okay, so let's just rip off the Band-Aid for this one. So from here on out, we get into what TNA touted as the triple main event. So these are 3 championship matches, and these were the final 3 matches of the card. The first one being for the TNA Knockouts World Championship between our champion Masha Slamovich and the challenger Tessa Blanchard. The positives of this match is that I love Masha and she did great. And that's as far as it goes because this crowd was not into this match because it's Tessa. Nobody in that arena felt that Tessa should be challenging for this championship. And it kind of showed in the match because Tessa got the majority of 80% of the offense in this match. And for me personally, it sucks because Masha has been working for the last 3 years. She was in a tag team championship. She was a tag team champion with Killer Kelly. Then she was fighting for the Knockouts Championship. Finally got it after beating Jordan Grace on her third try. So that was really fun. But then to have Tessa come in and kind of poo-poo all over it and feel like that she needs, to me, this was my least favorite match of the night. And it's not because of anything Masha did. It's because Tessa didn't sell for her. Tessa wasn't a good dance partner. And the match, unfortunately, was kind of boring. The crowd was not behind it. I wasn't behind it. And it kind of sucks because all of Masha's hard work for the last 3 weeks to be built up to this point got taken away in a 15-minute match. So we're going to talk about Tessa when we get to this week's episode because I don't like the direction we're going with because it seems she might get a more prominent role. And TNA still needs to figure out how they're going to address it because us wrestling fans, we don't forget. And we have yet to get anything from Tessa to address and take accountability for her actions last time she was in TNA. So I don't want to see Tessa and Masha fight anytime soon, but it seems we might be getting it, sooner than I think. So time will tell to see if these two cross paths, but I was not here for this match. Again, it's not anything Masha. I just wish she was given a different opponent because then we would have cared more. The audience in Los Angeles would have cared more. And unfortunately, I have to kind of say the same thing about the TNA World Tag Team Championship match. The match was fine. It was okay. The Nemeths win, and that wasn't my biggest problem. But again, I felt like we cut some time from this match, and I don't know why. This, again, felt like a main event for a TNA episode more than a tag team championship pay-per-view match. Of course, the Hardys were a hometown favorite. The crowd was behind the Hardys. I love the Nemeths being heels. And through shenanigans, Nick and Ryan Nemeth do walk out as the TNA World Tag Team Champions, bringing the Hardys' 198-day title reign to an end. Yeah, this match was okay. A lot of it got cut. For some reason, there was a couple of missed spots and miscues, which wasn't necessarily a deal breaker for me, but I kind of expected more. Now, on the one hand, I understand the Hardys are not in their primes anymore. They are at a certain age, and I get that. But I feel that the choreography, so to speak, of the match itself and the spots that they picked to highlight weren't necessarily some of the better choices. So we will be dealing with Nick and Ryan as champions for the foreseeable future, so we'll see how long their title reign goes. So now, we get into our main event of TNA Rebellion, which is this triple threat for the TNA World Championship. Joe Hendry, our champion, defending his title against both Frankie Kazarian, who's only in this match because he cashed in his shot trophy, and then NXT's All Ego Ethan Page. Now, I will say this was the better of the three triple main event matches, but not by much. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I love Joe with all my heart. But I think Ethan kind of carried a lot of this match, and that's a testament to how good All Ego is. Frankie Kazarian took some gnarly spots, and he had some moments where I was like, oh yeah, if we focus on Frankie's wrestling, it's great. I still don't like his character, but his wrestling is great. Now, Joe Hendry does pick up the victory here by pinning All Ego Ethan Page, which made me a little sad because I like Ethan. But Frankie Kazarian no longer has the Call Your Shot trophy, so that is done and over with, so that's good. All Ego is still looking to feud with Ricky Saints in NXT for the North American Championship. But after the match is over, Joe Hendry the win in the ring, and he gets attacked by NXT's Trick Williams. So Joe Hendry last week on NXT came to address some things. He has unfinished business with the NXT champion, Opa Femi, and Trick Williams did not like it, so he tried to get in Joe Hendry's face, which caused Opa and Joe Hendry to throw Trick Williams out the ring. So Trick Williams invaded Rebellion to end the show by attacking and knocking out Joe Hendry, and Trick Williams stand tall at the end of this. So my final thoughts on Rebellion. This was a very fun pay-per-view to be in. Unfortunately, because of some of my minor nitpicks, like the timing of matches, the international championship match being sacrificed just to propel the story, and my least favorite match of the whole entire night being Masha versus Tessa not being good and the crowd not being invested, I gave TNA Rebellion a B, which is still a pretty solid score. I just really wish that had Masha had a different opponent, I think I probably would have bumped it up to a B+. In person was great. Me and Mama Lou Willow had a great time, but Yeah, it's because of those minor nitpicks that I have. I can't give TNA Rebellion higher than a B. Still pretty solid, but some parts needed to be fixed, and it was kind of unfortunate. But I still had a blast. I definitely want to go see another TNA show or a TNA pay per view. Should it ever come to the West Coast in Southern California again, I'm so here for it. So now that we are done with Rebellion, let's quickly get into and briefly touch upon this past week's episode of TNA, which aired last night, Thursday, May 1st. So there's a lot of slides. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But this episode of TNA as a whole felt like a lot of setup for what's to come for the next pay-per-view, but also what we're probably going to get for the summer season of TNA, which is going to be an interesting journey. So we kick things off with TNA. Joe Hendry in the ring addressing Trick Williams' attack, calls out Trick. Trick is on the screen telling him that he has to prepare for the 25-man battle royale to earn a number one contender match against Obafemi at NXT's Battleground pay-per-view over Memorial Day weekend. So he's not in the building. So Joe Hendry then, says that he will get his payback on Trick at some point. But for tonight, he's going to be teaming up with the Hardys in the main event against the Nemeth brothers and Frankie Kazarian. We get a backstage segment with Sami Callihan and Mance Warner as they kind of come to terms with them being done for now. Like, they still don't like each other, but they can respect each other after the match they pulled off at the, respect towards each other, and that this feud is done for now. We get into our first match of the evening. Mike Santana takes on a local talent. Mike Santana wins. The most important thing to come out of this is not the match itself, but the promo Mike cut afterwards. Mike says that, now that he's done with Ali, he's back and being focused to what matters and getting some championship gold. So he calls out Joe Hendry to let him know that he respects Joe, but he's coming for that title and he's got next. I would love more than anything to see Mike Santana become a TNA World Champion this year. I don't think Macklin's losing this championship anytime soon, because if he does, then I'll be like, why did we have it? But who knows? We then get a very awesome TNA X Division match. And you know what? Shout out to TNA for continuing to have continuity. So this is Zachary Wentz's rematch from when he lost the championship at Victory Road last year in September. So this is a match months in the making. And we finally have Zach's rematch against Moose for the TNA X Division Championship. This is probably, this was my second favorite match of the night. Zachary Wentz is a talent that feels like doesn't get discussed a lot, and how good his offense is. And Moose being Moose is fantastic. Moose does retain his TNA X Division Championship, and that is the end of the road for Zach getting his rematch. And so Moose, we'll see who his next challengers are, but this was a great match. I loved it. I don't know where we're going with Ali next, but I love this defeatist, disheveled Mustafa Ali. He is just so broken after losing to Mike Santana. Gia Miller tries to get a word with Ali. Ali just brushes her off. One of the great hands answers says, we're going to make, it could be a fun story to tell. Oh, my little heart. Cody Deaner comes out at midnight on May 1st. His TNA contract comes to the end. So he comes out to say goodbye and to thank the TNA fans for all the years of him being here. But Santino Marella comes out and says that he loves Cody and wants to give him one more chance. So at TNA Under Siege, Santino says that if Cody Deaner can beat Eddie Edwards, then his contract will be renewed. But if Eddie Edwards beats Cody, then Cody will no longer be in TNA and his contract is up and he will become a free agent and no longer be with TNA. I'm a little torn about this because I love Cody Deaner, but I feel that maybe his time is up. I don't want to say that, but I think this is the end of Deaner in TNA. We really haven't done much with him since he split with Eric Young and that whole faction, which is really sucks. But hey, who knows? Maybe Cody will stick around. I want to see more of Deaner. I love him. I think this match is going to be a lot of fun. I hope they give this match time at Under Siege and not treat it as a joke match, because I think Deaner is actually a pretty good wrestler, and we know Eddie Edwards can go as well. So we'll see what happens with this. But once that was announced, though, then we get interrupted by Robert Stone and Victoria Crawford So NXT's Robert Stone makes an appearance, and I'm just like, okay, color me interested. And then when I saw Victoria Crawford, I was like, oh my gosh, no way. So, for those of you who may not know, Victoria Crawford is formerly known as Alicia Fox from WWE. Victoria has gone through, some changes. She's bettered herself. She's still wrestling on the independent scene, and now she's here in TNA. So, Robert Stone gets on the mic and says that Santino is being put under review for his management of Director of Authority in TNA. And so Robert Stone, for some odd reason, the higher ups in TNA and NXT have given the power to, make decisions, I guess. So Victoria gets a championship match, and at Under Siege for the TNA Knockouts Championship, it will be Masha Slamovich defending her title against Victoria Crawford. Am I excited about the match? Yes, because I think Masha and Victoria could probably do some great stuff. I just don't understand how come an NXT representative gets to make the decisions for TNA, but I digress. Robert Stone is kind of a booty hole here, and I'm kind of here for a heel Robert Stone, but I'm also questioning why Santino has to be like under, thing. So what I think is going to happen is somehow Santino's going to lose his job, but then he's going to come back and we're going to have a whole thing. And like, I can kind of see where the story plots are going, but again, this is the second match we have for Under Siege, which is Masha versus Victoria for the TNA Knockouts World Championship, and I'm here for it. We also get another fantastic match, Jody Threat versus Maggie Lee. This was a match to showcase Maggie Lee as a new addition to the Knockouts division here in TNA, and of course, Jody Threat being Jody Threat. Just running around, throwing people is great. Jody Threat does win. And you know what? Spitfire continues to build themselves back up after losing at Rebellion. Maggie Lee gets yelled at by the House of Elegance and the Concierge, but Maggie Lee is about to receive an Elegance makeover. So we shall see what she looks like underneath that brand. But this was a phenomenal match. And this was the only Knockouts match, though. That was my only big problem. This is the only Knockouts match we had this episode. So hopefully we get to see more next week. And, we'll see what happens. My heart, I was so happy. The announcement was made live during TNA Rebellion that Indy Hartwell has signed with TNA. Gia Miller calls her out on the stage near the ramp and interviews Indy, where Indy says that she's here for business. She's not here to be taken lightly. She wants to win. She wants to wrestle. And she has crossed the line into TNA. So I'm excited to see Indy. I feel like she didn't get a fair shake when she got called up to main roster from NXT. And so here, hopefully, I would love to see Indy do what Trinity/Naomi did after Naomi left the company and just reinvent herself, go on a run, have a great time. And you know what? If she wants to make TNA her permanent home, cool. But if she's here for a little bit, that's fine with me as well. I just want Indy to be in a place where she feels appreciated, loved, and is able to do what she wants to do, which is to wrestle. So, Indy, welcome to TNA. I am happy to have you as an addition to the Knockouts division here in TNA. And I look forward to see what you bring to the show and to the division as well. This was my match of the night. I know I'm biased. Literally, I'm repping Leon Slater's shirt during this review as we speak. But I have to give kudos to Casey Navarro, too, because he is also fantastic as well. We get Leon Slater versus Casey Navarro. This was a high-speed, high-flying match between these two. This was what X Division was built on. This was fantastic. Counters, flying off things. Leon Slater does pick up the victory here, and I could not be happier. This hopefully gives Leon some momentum to go after moves to re-challenge for that X Division championship down the line. And I want to see Leon become champion. I think he deserves it. I think he's paid his dues the last 2 years he's been here. So let's do it. Put the belt on Leon. I'm here for that agenda. Masha cuts a quick promo where she's tired of everyone sticking their nose in her business, but she has no problem defending the TNA Knockouts Championship. So she welcomes Victoria's challenge, and she is going to prove why she is the best women's wrestler in TNA. And I have no notes. I agree with my babe. Love you, Masha. You're fantastic. We get into the main event, which is Frankie Kazarian teaming up with our new tag team champions, the Nemeth brothers, taking on Joe Hendry and former tag team champions, the Hardys. This was a fun main event, and the Hardys and Joe would end up getting the momentum towards the end, but unfortunately, Big Willie Trick Williams comes out, taking out Joe Hendry, which lets Frankie and the Nemesis capitalize to pick up the victory here. So once again, for the second time in the same week, Trick Williams is standing tall over Joe Hendry, and we would get the announcement via social media that at Under Siege, Joe Hendry will be teaming up with his friend Elijah to take on Frankie Kazarian and NXT's Trick Williams. So I think this is going to be a fun filler feud for Joe until we figure out who his next challenger is for the championship. So this should be a pretty fun match, I'm not going to lie. But that brings me to the end of the TNA episode review. And that does bring me to the end of Six Sided Scholars. A bit of a short review tonight due to the fact that I am by myself, but thank you to everyone who tuned in for this one. There's a bunch of people watching, and I appreciate you staying up this late to, let me watch cover Rebellion and TNA with you. So next week we'll be back, hopefully with the full panel for another exciting TNA episode. But before I sign off for the evening, to kind of let you know what the rest of this week looks like, we got one more thing happening this week, and that is on Sunday. The Dual Dynasty crew will be here to review Raw and Smack, as well as make our predictions for WWE Backlash. So make sure to tune in Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern for all that good stuff. And then make sure you stick around to the social medias to see what we got in store for this upcoming week. We got a lot of reviews coming for some pay-per-views, some weekly shows. It's going to be great. But that is going to be it here for me at Six Sided Scholars. I want to thank everybody that tuned in this evening. And if you're watching the replay and you made it to the end, thank you so much. We appreciate all of you who tune in to watch our little wrestling show. But from myself, Will, JT, and the rest of the BC Wrestle Pod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you Sunday for the WWE review. But until then, adios, and take care of yourself tonight. Love yourself.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's going to happen next time? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.